Joel Salatin is an icon in the ag movement, in the self-sufficiency movement, and he has a lot of opinions on a crazy trend, the homesteading tsunami. We're going to take a deep dive into a lot of topics about, the feelings that we all have going into another year with something not feeling right. Joel, I'm ecstatic to be visiting with you again, my friend. As the most famous farmer in the world, you have put out so much incredible information. But something that has kind of caught my attention a little bit lately that I wanted to dive in with you is I feel like everybody or most people can feel something's off in the world. And so that leads me to start thinking about what is that and where are we headed? And so you've recently come up with a new work of art and have some answers to that. So if you don't care, Joel, tell us what your perception is on what's going on.
Yeah, my perception. So the most common thing that I hear from people today as I travel around and everything is I want to disentangle. To me, disentangle. In other words, people feel wrapped up, ensnared, you could say, but tangled up we've got stuff on the border. We've got, crime rampant in the cities. We've got nobody trusts the Fed. I mean, the level of trust in iconic American institutions from schools to colleges to to the economy to obviously elected officials and whatever has never been as low. I mean, these are empirical data points that that people that study these things are talking about. And when you have that level of disenfranchisement, it speaks of some pretty large cultural issues. And so I think here's the way I like to describe it. If you've ever had a wasp nest, on the back porch, and you go in and out, you see this wasp nest up there, it's about the size of your hand, and all these wasps, kind of sit there and they just look like they're all comatose. They're just sitting there okay, just hanging out here. And, they don't bother you. It's okay. Occasionally you see one fly off and come back. And then one day you're cleaning on the back porch or something. You got a broom and you accidentally hit the rafter that the nest is on with the broom handle. Now they don't come after you right away, but you hear this, you look and suddenly all of them are they're ready to take off. And that's the way I feel our culture is right now. Many people of us are like that disturbed wasp nest. We're not sure what disturbed us. We're not sure all the ramifications, but we know that we better be, we're more aware. We're looking for additional information, and we're trying to figure out other things. I think the new 401k plan is trying to live next to people who know how to grow things, fix things, and build things. And that's what's creating what I call the Homestead Tsunami is this mass exodus of people from cities to country as people become, concerned about the way things are going. And from food security to Putin in Ukraine, fertilizer costs, processing plants blowing up or burning down or whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of strange things kind of going on, and not the least of which is the meddlesome government in intervening in everything from EVs to solar farms to fake meat, lab cultured, and whatever. And mandatory jabs, and we can go down that rabbit hole too. But We're just seeing a kind of confluence of a lot of concerning things in the culture. And so I just feel like when I encounter people, everybody's like one of those disturbed wasps. We're not sure where we're going to run. We're not sure where we are. We're not sure all the ramifications, but we know we better not just be sleeping. We'd better get up, get our wings, get our wings ready and be ready to do something.
I think the wasp analogy is perfect. I think that's exactly what I feel, is that wasps on alert. And so, yeah, I love that you use that. Joel, one thing that I heard was during COVID, the people that got into raising backyard chickens is estimated at somewhere above 1 million new individuals raising chickens. So does that play into what you're talking about with just kind of reaching for some sort of security?
Yes, absolutely. When there is dysfunction and instability within a culture, people gravitate toward something that they can viscerally control, and that's all part of this disentanglement. How do I reduce my dependency on either people who are incompetent or people who have maybe nefarious agendas? I mean, think about this, Logan. Bill Gates makes no apologies for believing that the only way to save humanity is for about 2/3 of us to die. He hasn't been quiet about that. We've got to reduce the population. Now, I want you to just think a minute. Just think, and of course, he's a powerful guy. He's got money in all sorts of things. Just imagine if you really believed that you would save humanity by killing 2/3 of it. What could you morally and ethically justify doing? Anything. Exactly. You got it. Bingo. Exactly. Anything is on the table. And I think that is the kind. I mean, you've got Klaus Schwab at World Economic Forum. In 5 years, nobody's going to own anything, and you're not going to want to, and we're all going to be happy about it. I mean, these are bold statements by people who are friends of the movers and shakers of the world, and so many of us are trying to build build an independent nest, if you will, and come out from under that entanglement. I think there's an intuitive understanding in the heart of a lot of people that if the wheels fall off, you don't want to be in the city.
Yeah. So let's get into that, because I think that you've pretty much described what that feeling is that a lot of us have. So let's get into some of the action steps of how we shore up a more resilient food system. And I like, the homesteading where we're doing it for ourselves. How do we work with, local farmers? What does all that look like in some, stages of these solutions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the food system is essentially a four component system. You've got production, processing, marketing, and distribution. Those are kind of the four. I mean, we could argue about if there's 5 or 6 or whatever, but for me, it's easy to just look at these four. You got production, processing, because nobody wants a live chicken on their table, right? You got to get the guts out of it. You got to get the feathers and the guts off, and then marketing. This is the whole, selling and marketing aspect, and then distribution. You got to get it somewhere, and so these are kind of the four components. So let's start with the production component on a farm. So, when Putin invaded Ukraine, and fertilizer jumped 400%. And all the farmers were on, the media whining and complaining about, no, what are we going to do? We can't get this. We just laughed at our place because we don't buy any of it. Okay. And so one of the first things from a production standpoint you can do is get disentangled from those, that global supply network, and try to bring home things. Now, Do we buy some fuel? Yes, we certainly do. But we buy we buy a lot less than most people, because we are a highly management people centric outfit, not a machinery energy intensive outfit. And so we have replaced a lot of depreciable infrastructure, inputs, and machinery with people and management. And those things then change the equity equation on the farm, because people don't appreciate, they tend they don't depreciate, they tend to appreciate, as they get more knowledgeable and skillful. I mean, until they finally get, really, really old, like I am. And then, then you start to go downhill. But until then, that skill level of management. So what that means is our equity on the farm is in knowledge, skill, and customers. Okay. On the average farm, the equity isn't in those things. The equity is in depreciable, capital intensive, energy intensive, and in many ways pharmaceutically intensive things. And of course, that juggernaut is continuing unabated with the promises of precision agriculture, AI, and your cows swallowing antenna transponders, so that everything from her burps to her farts can get loaded up into the data of everything. And so production, weaning your way away from those things. Processing, okay. So what is a disentangled processing? Well, it looks like a lot of community, small scale slaughterhouses and canneries and things like that. Cottage industry, people who make cheese right on their dairy, like dairy farmers who send the milk right into a tank and make cheese out of it, or ice cream, that kind of thing. So you have a very integrated system rather than segregated, where farmers are simply raw product commodity brokers who are selling into value adding somewhere else. You're back bringing that value added back to the farm. Marketing, well, it means that you're going to sell primarily in your locale, in your community, and you're going to have a branded story that attracts people to it. In other words, you're selling because it's more nutritious, not because it's cheaper, but because it saves the world, it grows earthworms, it feeds your microbiome, it won't give you diarrhea. Those are the kind of marketing messages. And then finally, distribution becomes collaborative. For example, on our farm, we work with about 10 or 12 food and fiber artisans in the area that can put their stuff on our truck when it goes into town. We actually work with a distributor that's selling stuff for the Amish. A bunch of horse and buggy Amish got together, created a co-op. They hired a non-Amish guy to drive a truck. Well, we've now put our stuff on their truck. And so it saves us all. And that guy gets, more volume in his truck, where, that's a big deal. But we get advantages of scale, but they're regional scale. It's not Amazon. It's not Walmart. It's a bio-regional type of scale. And so those are the sorts of things that I think that we'll see and are seeing in a response to this overriding lack of trust and lack of actual not just credibility, but the lack of being the fragility of that long chain of custody that we saw really manifested in 2020 with the empty store shelves and the extermination of thousands and thousands of pigs and chickens because you couldn't get them processed. we never stopped processing. We never exterminated anything. Why? Because small slaughterhouse, short chain of custody, people centric, no pharmaceuticals. It's just more resilient.
Centralized is a term that a lot of Bitcoiners and crypto enthusiasts will use. I've got a buddy that has decentralized radio, and that's really like his whole topic. It's even the finances, it's health, it's agriculture. And I think that you laid out a really good support case for regenerative agriculture on that production side.
Yep.
And I don't know, Joel, until just now, it just kind of hit me. Regenerative is decentralized. It is localized, just kind of by definition. And so what are your thoughts on this? So I recently read the book and interviewed Matt, who had Fiat Food, and he laid out a beautiful history and argument for why our food is so cheap, why this centralization has occurred, the corporatocracy that it really kind of dictates a lot of the legislation that we have. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on the money side, the finance side? Have you come up with anything that might be a viable solution to break apart in that aspect?
Well, I'll tell you this, in 2021, our T-bone steaks were cheaper than Costco. First time in history, first time that ever happened. And it struck me that as things become more more disturbed, as what you and I have been talking about becomes, as these disturbances become deeper and more common, we're going to see those disturbances have economic impact within the industry, whether it's high path avian influenza. That's on the horizon of every industrial chicken farm. This. I mean, they just go to bed at night, those guys, paranoid, about avian influenza. Well, we don't even think about it, and even though we've got thousands and thousands of chickens. Why? Because, our chickens have a good immune system, and they're not concentrated. Yeah, we raise thousands of chickens, but they're decentralized. So we believe in scale by duplication. So, for example, rather than having a centralized, let's say with chickens for a minute, a centralized chicken slaughterhouse that does 200,000 chickens a day. Instead, you would have 20 neighborhood slaughterhouses employing, a dozen, maybe 20 people that would do a couple thousand a day, and they're scattered all around. And so what happens? So what you do is you diversify, you decentralize. I like your word. You decentralize throughout the landscape, and now you don't override the ecological nest or carrying capacity or immunological function. You don't override that with too great a concentration. I mean, we all know that in biological systems, you can't pile everything on at one spot. You can't do that with people. You can't do that with potatoes. You can't do that with flowers. Nature gets volume by sheer by duplication and diversification. So on the money side, what I see is that those of us who aren't dependent on as much petroleum, who aren't dependent on Vladimir Putin for our fertilizer, who aren't dependent on the Teamsters to the truckers unions, all right, to transfer our goods. Those of us who aren't dependent on those things, we are gradually coming closer with price. And as these black swans, develop, I think that we're going to see a greater and greater opportunity for those of us who are really producing authentic food to be able to be priced similarly to what's in the store. The cost, Logan, the cost of just human resources now since COVID, think about the cost that companies have installed for biosecurity for their workers, for their employees, since COVID. But at our slaughterhouse that we co-own, we've got 20 employees, and we haven't had to implement any of those things. And so, because there's so few of us and we're all spread out in this, in this plant, and we don't have, 20 people in one room working on something. We might have at the most, 3 people in one room. And so those kinds of freedoms, those kind of liberties and freedoms within the system are creating economies. They're creating economic viability that we literally didn't have before. And I don't know, when our prices will get. I'll tell you this. Here's an interesting little anecdote. So last spring in 2023, we finally, figured out the packaging and the way so that we could ship eggs. We could ship eggs nationwide from here. Okay. And I said, oh, come on. There's no way you can compete financially. Who's going to buy? Nobody's going to buy eggs, shipped from us. In the year since, we can now ship eggs to Boston, Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, cheaper than they can get eggs at the farmer's market.
Wow. Why
is that? Well, it's because when you defund the police, you raise the taxes, and you regulate everything with a pile of bureaucrats, the cost of doing business is so high in those, and I don't want to get all political here, but those areas, the cost of doing business is so high that it enables somebody like us who lives out here on a dirt road in a conservative area with no crime, low taxes. We can now compete financially in those areas. It's quite I've never seen this. It's quite an inversion. And I can tell you it's an interesting trend. It will be interesting to see how it goes, but it certainly is a trend, because we, when Tyson in 2021, Tyson raised their beef prices over 30% in those 12 months, over 30%. Now they've come down since. But what I'm getting at is, with everything that was happening, we only raised ours 10% because we didn't have the stress pressures that those great big monolithic centralized outfits had. And so, when you're trying to navigate a rocky, rocky shoals, you don't want to be in an aircraft carrier. You want to be in a little speedboat, So we're a little speedboat, right? And we can navigate those rocky shoals, while these great big aircraft carriers, it takes them 20 miles to turn around.
I love that. This whole movement of questioning seems to really rear its head around Bitcoiners, the carnivore movement, regenerative ag, homesteaders, preppers. What do you see as that common thread with that? Because while I see them coming together slowly, they really haven't been like this magnetic, just pop together like I would think. But what are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts on that are that everybody has their expertise or their little, their little thing about knowledge. I know this. I mean, look, you can't be an expert at everything. And so, one of the reasons I haven't bought Bitcoin, I don't understand it. I'm not disinterested in it, but I'm not a computer guy. I mean, I'm still I'm still a flip phone guy. Okay, my
You're a
flip phone.
flip phoner.
Goodness, I can't even get a right name on my shirt. I'm Eric. From the I'm the janitor. Eric. So all of us have our spheres of expertise, and I think a great kind of anecdotal story to explain this was back, goodness, in the late 80s, early 90s, as Teresa and I started getting some notoriety. There's this young couple, they don't have any money, and they're on this little farm, and they're making a living on the farm, and we started getting media attention and stuff, and people would start coming. And at that time, virtually, I'm going to say 90% of our farm visitors were liberal tree huggers. They were environmentalists, liberal tree huggers, earth muffins. And then early 90s, here comes the homeschool movement. The homeschool movement took off. And then within just a couple of years of the homeschool movement really getting traction, suddenly our farm visitors were about half and half, conservatives and liberals. And what I kept hearing was, well, we didn't like what we saw in the public school, so we pulled our kids out, we started homeschooling, and man, it has been such a wonderful experience. We started asking, well, what else have we been missing? And that's what happens. And so what I see, you're saying Bitcoin, carnivore, all preppers, all these things, there are people, putting solar panels. I mean, there's also, rocket stoves. I mean, there's a million things going on right now. And what it is, I think some people are really, computer, financial nerds. Okay. And they just love this stuff, this Bitcoin, this cryptocurrency, all that. Some people are having health issues, and they're desperate to find an answer to their health problem. And so they're researching and they're looking and they're, Googling and finding Weston A. Price Foundation and, carnivore and whatever. Other people are interested in energy. They're concerned. Oh man, we're not going to have energy. So, they're into solar and windmills and making alcohol and whatever. So, and what happens is there are so many great solutions now in all these spheres that they find truth. They find, okay, this works. Okay. And what happens then is when they find themselves, whatever, their curiosity and their fears allayed and their curiosity satiated. Oh, I found an answer here. I found truth. Okay. Well, next thing they're saying is, well, what else is there? Where else do I need to find truth? And so then they start down, I heard about this guy that's got an energy solution. I heard about this guy that's got, a dietary, health solution and blah, blah, blah. And so then they start to loosely collaborate and get together in this kind of self-reliant, independent disentanglement movement. But everyone, at least everyone that I've met, and of course, my expertise is how to farm without chemicals. Okay. How to farm without energy and chemicals and all that stuff. And so that's what I can bring to the table. But I find myself drawn to anyone that has a solution for money, a solution for health, a solution for energy, all these things. I'm interested in all of it. And so you get these wonderful, collaborative things where people, kind of come together, but you have gurus throughout that provide the threads, and then we've got to weave our own tapestry.
I love that. I agree. I think you're spot on with that. Well, let's dive in a little bit more of the ag then. What's some of the biggest things about agriculture that just kind of drive you crazy? And I want to start by this one. When I see in a grocery store that chickens are fed 100% vegetarian diet, it just makes me want to explode. So what is it for you that does that?
Well, I guess for me, it's probably it's probably just in general, in the broadest sense, it's the marketplace manipulation and intervention from the government, especially the federal government. If we did not have the federal government subsidizes that now that they don't like subsidies, so now they call it crop insurance, but they give special financial concessions to six things. Corn, soybeans, wheat, cotton, rice, and sugarcane. Okay. Those are the 6 things that the government subsidizes. What happens when the federal government intervenes in the marketplace and subsidizes one sector? It skews everything. It makes things dishonest. And so what happens is a Snickers bar then becomes cheaper than a carrot. And you have all these weird skewings in the marketplace, including, the whole food pyramid, the My Plate thing, telling us what to eat. The government is telling us what to eat. The school lunch program, the whole thing. And so I'm very happy to go one-on-one, to go up against Monsanto, Cargill. I can do that. That's no problem. The problem is that the agri-industrial complex is the great big, Cargill, Tyson, whatever, Iowa beef packers, in collusion with the U.S. duh. I call it the U.S. duh. And so when I have a discussion with a neighbor farmer or a potential customer, it's not just me against the corporate message. It's me against the corporate and the credentialed land grant university, U.S. duh, all this, it makes them have their finger on the scale. I think I could win a debate really easily with the corporate, with my peers in the agriculture business sector. What makes the debate difficult is when you have the whole governmental bureaucracy, all the academics, the education, the land grant university, all this stuff. You have them pumping out propaganda. They call it science, but it's really propaganda to skew the discussion, and that makes it difficult.
2 things that popped up as you were going through that. One is Alan Savory, and when he speaks about the wicked problems of institutions, it really just it's not logical anymore once we get to that level. And the other is, Charles Munger's quote, "Incentives dictate outcome." And so when we're really thinking about why the decisions are made legislatively, we follow the money. It's pretty obvious, right? So even with you'd mentioned land grant institutions, what you have laid out from the beginning, just to kind of tie this all out, is how we get away from that centralized control by decentralizing and supporting this localized food system. Mm-hmm. So I think that part of why homesteading is exploding, and I want your opinion on this, is that we don't have that infrastructure in those four categories that you laid out, from the production to the distribution. And so in order to kind of have a solution, they try to do it themselves, right? So I think that we've got a disconnect there where we have got to have maybe it's simply education. How do we teach people to run a grocery store? How do we teach people to farm, as you've done for many years? How do we teach distribution, and all in like a conscious capitalist type of way?
Yeah, well, I think we teach it. You mentioned a couple little sayings there. Necessity is the mother of invention too. That's a good old one. And so as things begin to collapse, and as people don't trust Tyson as much, as people don't trust Jolly Green Giant or name your big Heinz or Nestle or Coca-Cola or whatever. As people's trust in these big outfits wanes, then the necessity is to create what we call a parallel universe. So John Bush in Texas has started these conferences called Exit and Build. And I love the idea. In other words, he's saying you exit the system, but then you have to build something over here. And it follows along a lot of the idea that fear. So a lot of the things that people, what makes that back to the wasp nest analogy, what brought them, awake was fear. Something's attacking us. We're getting ready to be attacked. And many of us feel like, we're being attacked by bureaucrats. We're being attacked by bankers. We're being attacked by criminals in the city. Crime is rampant. And so we feel that attack, and that fear makes us want to run. We want to run run away, but you can't run away forever. At some point you have to stop and by faith, embrace something better, embrace something different. And so what we're seeing right now, for example, is an exploding number. I'll just give you one example of web page and internet nerds that are creating platforms for farmers like us to be able to direct market. I mean, if you'd have told me 5 years ago you're going to be shipping nationwide, I'd have said you're nuts. No way we're gonna do this. And here we are, and it's suddenly become 30-35% of our sales. We never would have imagined it, and it just continues to grow. Why? Because people in the city, they don't want to come out of their house because they're afraid of being mugged. So they'd rather get it in a box delivered to their doorstep. They can furtively open the door, grab the box, and bring it back in, and they don't have to go out and face being mugged on their way to a grocery store, and so or carjacked or whatever. And so as things move, there are people with all sorts of expertise, collaborative expertise, internet expertise, that are working together, to make it just like I said. We're now jumping on an Amish delivery truck. That's funny, isn't it? Amish delivery truck. We're jumping on that. And it means that we don't have to have the expense of our truck, and they are in the business and they're going anyway. So let's collaborate with these guys and let's put our stuff on. And so those kind of collaborative arrangements, I think the market, that localization, that the localization of everything that the globalists have created. I mean, think about that. The globalists created efficient distribution, UPS, FedEx, all that. That was commerce, PayPal, Squarespace, whatever. I'm already over my pay grade here, but all of these things were developed by the globalists. But they're now being co-opted. All that technology is being co-opted by localization to make it easy for us. I mean, when we started, Logan, how did I communicate with my customers? I sent a snail mail newsletter. I had to make a phone call. I had to come in from the farm, make a phone. Now we can preset emails to an email list. And while I'm out raking hay, the computer reads, it's 2:00 on Friday afternoon. Time to send out these thousand email reminders. It does all that automatically, pre-programmed a month in advance on a rainy day. I don't even have to look at it, and the orders come in. I mean, that is the coolest thing in the world. So we are not impotent. This local food system is not impotent. we have tools now that are making it possible for us to do things we could have never thought of before. I mean, it's the same thing in domestic culinary arts. I'm a big proponent of the fact that we cannot have an authentic food system until we get back in the kitchen. You cannot abdicate domestic culinary arts and have an integrity food system. You got to know some things. Well, so when people push back and say, "Oh, you're telling us, we're busy. We can't be in the kitchen." Oh, listen, you've got Time Bank, you've got Instapot, you've got crock pots, hot and cold running water. We're not talking about going to great grandma's kitchen, running to the spring with a wooden bucket to get water to put in a wood cook stove to have water. No. We've got refrigerators, we've got all this stuff. We can use those kinds of miniaturized tools that were developed by the industry to make Hot Pockets and Lunchables by the tractor trailer load. But the technology, the spinners and the beaters and the little electric motors and the whatever have been miniaturized to kitchen scale to enable a newly released ease, simplicity of domestic culinary arts. And so this is the way those kind of things happen. You get out and you let, Texas Instruments, you're a lot younger than I am. I remember when the very first pocket calculator came out. And I mean, the only person that had it in school was like, the math nerd, and they were $200 and everybody gathered around and look at this little, I mean, and one guy, I remember the first guy that got one, he was the only one in the whole high school that had one. It was strange. Now, you get these things for whatever, $7.99 or for free if you open a bank account. And that's the diffusion of innovation. And what we're seeing now, I hope, not running on too long, but I hope that this innovation that we've seen in the big scale, the global, the corporate sector is being miniaturized and democratized down to the local level, including the internet, which was supposed to service, the big globalists. And now my website looks exactly like Walmart's website. When you look at our websites, you can't tell the difference from a storefront standard. You can't tell the difference between us and Walmart. And that's the ultimate democratization of market access.
So there's a lot of things that we can be hopeful for, right? So
yes.
It's not all doom and gloom. That's
right.
That's my biggest takeaway. It's like we can utilize the technology for the mission, right? The decentralization, the profitability on these local food systems. So what is next for you, my friend? What is 2024 going to look like with the different classes and courses and tours, and what do you got going on this year?
Oh man, we are so excited for this year. We've got a lot of cool things coming up. The first one's going to be in May at the Rogue Food Conference. So we've now built a back in 2022 was the first year we had our Lunatic Learning Center. We built it in the winter of 2021-22. So it was ready for the 2022. So we're having these gatherings, and our first one for the year is going to be in May, the Rogue Food Conference. We're going to have Catherine Austin Fitz, the founder of Solari, is going to be our keynoter. Of course, Congressman Tom Massey will be here, and this is all about empowering farmers to circumvent food regulations and not comply. So all sorts of techniques and loopholes, legal loopholes and things to be able to sell to your neighbor without a bureaucrat involved and a license and all that stuff. So this will be our 7th one, I think. We had one in Washington last year. We've done them in Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee. We're going to Dallas this fall with it. It's really Rogue Food, rfc.com, you can, or rfc.org. You can look it up, and that's going to be fun. And then we're going to be doing the Stockman Grass Farmer Gathering here this year. And man, do we have a lineup? We've got we've got Kit Farrow coming. We've got Darren Dougherty, the Regrarians founder. Dan Kittredge, founder of the Bionutrient Food Association. John Kempf, agro-eco agronomist. So, just a stellar lineup of folks developing. A couple interesting things that are developing. Talk about, localization of global interest. So we've just, yesterday, I inked the deal with the Coast Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard. They host a 12-week course with international military officers from around the world who come for 12 weeks and learn whatever the American Coast Guard can teach them. And one of the little modules is a module on American free enterprise. How American free enterprise works. How it works. And they've contacted us, and they want me to do that module. So they're going to bring all those officers here from around the world for a day. We'll feed them lunch and we'll tour a farm tour, and we'll talk about agriculture in an American free enterprise system. At least, cool. We're freer than a lot of their countries are with corruption and all sorts of things. So it is relative. We're not free here. We're, it's relative, but we're better than most of them will come from. Another interesting thing, I don't know why I'm stuck on a military, but another cool thing is, we do these polyface intensive discovery seminars. They're 2-day, 6-meal. We basically take a week worth of material and cram it into 2 long days. And so it's intensive. It's really intensive. Well, I did a podcast for the Navy SEALs Foundation, and they were so taken with this and they have a lot of, retired Navy SEALs. So we're going to do a Navy SEALs only seminar for them. And so we're going to have, these 30, 35, former Navy SEALs come for a regenerative, the seminar. And so our team here, of course, they want them to stay another day and shoot skeet and do some, learn how to break somebody's arm, and do that. So you look, the point is there is just really, there is a very broad, I think, it's safe to say there's an incredibly broad interest in food, in stable food. How do we stabilize food? How do we secure food? And how do we do it in a way that actually builds soil, increases water, do it in an environmentally friendly way, in an ecologically friendly way. And I with all the climate change and green, all that stuff, there's obviously increasing interest in how do we do a carbon centric, a carbon plus agriculture. That's a huge interest. How do we get the food, the nutrition up in our food? How do we do that? So in June we'll be hosting the Beyond's Label Summit, where the whole 2-day summit is going to be geared toward detoxification. All right, we've got EMFs, we've got pesticides, we've got all this stuff. How do we detoxify, our bodies and the environment? So lots of cool things going on. It's going to be a very, very exciting very exciting summer, and hope a lot of folks will come and take advantage of the fellowship that you can have. There's nothing like getting together in person with people that can offer something to you and you can offer something to them. That it's a powerful thing.
I love that. That's a lot going on. I may try to get down to Dallas. That's only 4 hours for me. So that might happen. But absolutely. Joel, thank you for what you do, brother. Thank you for, being honest and saying what you think. And I love that. So thank you for the time. I can't wait to get my hands on your new book.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been an honor to be.
Thank you for joining us on Sowing Prosperity. Be sure to follow along across the social media platforms, including YouTube, and be sure to go to sowingprosperity.com.